At a time when 1 out of every 6 Americans are struggling to find the food that they need to survive, we must realize that poverty is a major issue in this country. Moreover, there are some regions in this country that are more impoverished than other regions. So, for instance, one region that absolutely needs our attention is the Appalachian region. Now, Appalachian states tend to have higher poverty and unemployment rates than the national average. For instance, the US poverty rate is 14%, but the West Virginia poverty rate is 17%, and the Kentucky poverty rate is as high as 19%. Moreover, while the national unemployment rate is only 5.9%, the West Virginia unemployment rate is 6.6%, the Kentucky unemployment rate is 7.1%, the Tennessee unemployment rate is actually as high as 7.4%. Now, this is a big problem, and Appalachia has had a big problem with poverty for many years, for many, many decades. And the fact is that this has been a problem before the decline of the coal industry, but the decline of the coal industry is really exacerbating problems a lot. Now, over the last couple decades, the coal industry has noticed that they can get more coal by mining in western states, including Montana and Wyoming. Therefore, there have been fewer and fewer jobs in the Appalachian region. But on the other hand, many people growing up over the last few decades, and over the few decades before then, believed that if they left school early, or at the very least if they chose not to go to college, maybe they couldn't afford college, maybe their families needed them to leave school early, so they did. And even those who didn't leave school early, even those who graduated high school, very often did not go on to college. And they did this because they assumed that they could get decent paying jobs in coal mining. But many of them counted their chickens before they hatched, and in many cases the chickens didn't hatch, which is why many people in the Appalachian region are working low-paying minimum wage jobs. And so this is a very big problem. As coal jobs disappear, more and more people are going to be impoverished because they don't really have any alternative that pays nearly as well as coal mining. And so we absolutely need to deal with this. At the same time, there's another major problem. Many people don't believe that this is a problem, but it is a problem. It's called climate change. Now, 97% of climate scientists who publish a majority of their papers on climate change will tell you that climate change is A, happening, and B, largely caused by human activity. Many people choose not to believe this, but regardless of what you believe on climate change, here are a few facts. The first fact of the matter is that the polar ice caps have lost 204 billion tons of ice in the last 3 years alone. 204 billion tons of ice, and scientists are saying that this is actually altering the planet's gravity. That's how grave the situation really is. And at the same time, within the Appalachian region, the effects of climate change are already being felt. According to the U.S. Global Change Research Program, climate history shows the Southeast has become hotter and drier since the 1970s. In the past 30 years, for most of the Appalachian region, 5 to 15 fewer days of freezing have been recorded per winter. We need to deal with poverty in the Appalachian region, we need to deal with climate change globally, and we also need to really deal with poverty in a way that will help us deal with the effects of climate change that are being felt in the region. Now, the question is, how? How do we do this? Well, I say what we need is a New Deal for Appalachia. We need a policy that is pro-miner, pro-Appalachia, but anti-coal. And how the hell could a policy be pro-miner, pro-Appalachia, and anti-coal? Well, on the one hand, we need to invest in a big jobs program. And by we, I don't mean the federal government. I actually mean the state governments involved. I think that West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, and all of the states in the Appalachian region need to have their own jobs programs. They need to work on their infrastructure. They need to have public jobs created through public works projects. They also need to work on creating jobs in the renewable energy sector, and they need to work with nonprofits to create other jobs through an ELR program, Employer as a Last Resort program. But the question is, how do we get the money, or how does Tennessee or Kentucky or West Virginia get the money to create hundreds of thousands of jobs? And moreover, one other thing about these jobs is, I think that these jobs need to be for both for both the unemployed and the soon-to-be unemployed. So in other words, since the coal industry is declining, there will be, regardless of Obama's EPA regs, regardless of that, the fact of the matter is that, first of all, there's the shift within the coal industry from West Virginia and from Central Appalachia to Wyoming and Montana. Secondly, there's the shift in the market from coal to natural gas. Third of all, there are, of course, the EPA regulations that are exacerbating things for the coal industry. But the fact of the matter is that all of these factors combined, and one other big factor I'm going to get to momentarily, are causing a huge decline in coal jobs in the region. And we need to create jobs for all of these miners who are going to be unemployed. We have to do it because they need to feed their families. It's absolutely essential that we do this. But the question is, where do we get the money for this? Where do we get the money to create these jobs? Well, I think we need to get the money in a way that will help the planet and that will help us prevent some of the effects of these droughts and mitigate other effects of these droughts that will occur over the next 50 years in the Appalachian region. So what would that be? Well, essentially, it's the C word. Really, in the Appalachian region, many people really hate the idea of this, but it's really the only way that they will save themselves. They need to have a carbon tax. They absolutely need a carbon tax. They need to put a price on carbon dioxide, perhaps $20 per metric ton of carbon dioxide that's dumped into the atmosphere. Now, it's true that this will hurt the coal industry. That's definitely true. But the fact of the matter is that the coal industry is already hurting. And it's true that many people in this region have a very big tradition with coal. Their families have mined coal for generations and generations, and they've sacrificed a lot of blood, tears, and sweat, to use Churchill's phrase, in the coal mines. And so it's very difficult emotionally to really disconnect from that heritage. And the problem is, though, that even if you don't want to stop mining coal, even if you don't want to see this heritage that your family has die away, the coal jobs are disappearing regardless. The coal industry is dying, especially in the Appalachian region. Now, this isn't just because of Obama's EPA regulations. It isn't only because of the shift within the coal industry towards Wyoming and Montana. It isn't only because of the market shift to natural gas. There's another huge factor that we need to consider. Coal reserves are depleting. They are going away. And as a matter of fact, from 2000 to 2009, under President Bush, who made things very nice for the coal industry, coal production in underground and surface mines decreased from 261 million tons in 2000 to 196 million tons in 2009. Moreover, the Energy Information Administration has projected that although there were 234 million tons total of coal production total from the region in 2008, by next year, by 2015, coal production in Central Appalachia will only be 112 million tons. So that decline is over 50%. It's about 25% from 2000 to 2009, and by next year, the decline in coal production will be another 50%. Now, coal reserves are going away. In fact, Arch Coal, one of the biggest coal companies in the region, has told investors back in 2010 that Central Appalachian coal, quote, is in secular decline, faced with depleting reserves and significant regulatory hurdles, end of quote. Moreover, one miner, Leonard Fleming, has said, I've heard of them getting little seams of coal as small as 6 inches. Now, the coal miners know this. They're seeing the coal disappear. And the coal companies know this because that's why they're doing that's why they're using environmentally disastrous techniques, including mountaintop mining, and this is because they're getting less and less coal from Appalachia. And as we scar the landscape of the Appalachian Mountains with mountaintop removal, the fact is that the coal is still running out, and a change in energy policy will not change the basic geology of the region. Nothing will change that. People can blame the Obama administration till they are blue in the face, but the coal is still running out. And when it does run out, thousands, tens of thousands of jobs will be lost. Tens of thousands of families will not have the sort of income that they once did. This region could be devastated when the coal industry dies, unless we kill it properly, unless we kill the coal industry in a way that is painless for the people who depend on it. And the only way we can do that is by having a new deal for Appalachia. The only way we can do that is by funding a jobs program with a carbon tax. Now, moreover, there's another thing for us to consider, which is that coal mining is very often a very labor-intensive activity, and it's a very dangerous activity. Many people have died in coal mining accidents. I think on average about 30 people die in coal mining accidents every year. And moreover, people breathe in the coal to their lungs, and many of them have health problems as a result. And so the costs to people's health are enormous. And on the other hand, these new jobs that can be created, and I'm going to be explaining the numbers in my next video, can pay comparable wages, and or rather they can pay out comparable annual income for fewer hours. People often work about 70 hours in coal mines, and I'm going to be talking about how we can ensure that we create enough jobs for enough ex-miners that will pay comparable wages for fewer hours, better working conditions. Well, almost by definition, a job that's not in a coal mine is probably going to have better working conditions. And so there are numerous benefits to the coal miners themselves if they back this. Now finally, one other issue is this. It's going to be very hard to get state legislatures in West Virginia or Kentucky to pass this kind of legislation. But I also think that if the case is made directly to the miners themselves and directly to the people who are being affected by these problems in Central Appalachia, I believe that we can get a ballot measure. We can get a proposition on the ballot in Appalachian states. We can get one in West Virginia, we can get one in Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, which are nominally Appalachian states. We can get these sorts of ballot measures on the, and hopefully, if we really make the case well enough, if we point out that the coal miners have everything to lose and nothing to gain by voting against such a proposition, then we can find a solution that is good for Appalachia, that will help us deal with poverty in the region, and that will also help us deal with climate change in the region, in the country, and around the world. And that is what we must do if we are going to reclaim the future for ourselves. If we are going to say that although some people, some fatalists and naysayers think that everything is doom and gloom, we can take matters into our own hands. And that's what we have got to do if this next century is going to be ours. Thank you.